Welcome to Newshour. Well, in a plot twist that even Hollywood couldn't script, tonight we pass round the popcorn and prepare to examine the ultimate bromance gone bust. President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, the rocket-riding richest man on Earth, have begun what could be a protracted and potentially very damaging public fallout. Just 2 months ago, these two seemed as solid as a SpaceX launch pad, with Musk cheering Trumpian policies and slashing government inefficiencies with and without his chainsaw. But how fast things can change. Mr. Musk has slammed President Trump's big, beautiful spending bill as an abomination. And so suddenly it's gloves off in a public feud worthy of a reality TV finale. Okay, first let's go to Washington, D.C., where our correspondent Nick Harper is waiting. Nick, entertaining, obviously, this, but when such powerful figures fall out, there are also potentially some very serious implications, aren't there?
That's right, guys. Some potentially seismic consequences for both men that they might have to face if they're unable to resolve their differences. We've seen the threats, the accusations, the insults being traded very publicly on social media. But all of those theatrics really hide the huge consequences and implications for both men. Now, for Elon Musk, he is trying to kill Donald Trump's signature spending bill. That could be a huge problem for the president, who's hoping to get this done by July the 4th. Elon Musk has been angered about this, saying that it will add trillions in debt to the US economy, but also angered that it will cut out the tax credits that he's been enjoying for anyone looking to buy an electric vehicle. That has certainly helped Tesla in recent years. That will all go away if this bill passes Congress. So the short-term consequence here for Donald Trump would be that Elon Musk is able to use his influence to kill that bill. He's urging senators to rewrite it. And of course, there's plenty of Americans seeing all of this playing out and thinking, maybe this spending bill is not in their best interest either. But there are longer-term consequences for the Republican Party if Elon Musk continues this feud. Remember, he's the world's richest man with sizable resources that he's been pouring into the Republican Party in recent years. And he could decide not to fund future Republican candidates who have primary challenges around the corner. All of it could have a knock-on effect, potentially even costing the Republicans their majorities in both the House of Representatives and the Senate when we get to the midterm elections in November next year. Then on the other side, Elon Musk is facing some very big financial challenges if this feud continues. We know that he could potentially lose those tax credits if the spending bill passes, but Donald Trump has suggested that he would pull all government contracts being given to Elon Musk's multiple companies. So he would lose contracts in the automotive sector, in the space sector, in the defense sector. There has been some calculation adding all of that up, the suggestion being that Elon Musk would lose $38 billion, a huge hole in his balance sheet if Donald Trump were to go ahead and pull all of the contracts that are currently in place. There is a suggestion that we could see a détente during the course of the day. There is an idea of a talk trying to be brokered between White House aides and Elon Musk. That call could take place in the coming hours, a call that could try and resolve the differences. But of course, as we've seen play out on social media, that bromance now at least seems to be dead. And we're seeing the consequences that could have huge financial implications for the Republican Party, for Elon Musk, and even the US economy. Nick Harper for AnewZ in Washington, D.C.
Nick, thanks very much indeed. So then, with such famous and powerful public figures clashing, what do ordinary people make of this latest twist in the Trump-Musk saga? To Oakland, California now, and let's hear a snapshot of the public's reaction.
I think one of my first reaction was laughter at Elon's tweet about the Epstein files not being released and why, and the pettiness of it made me laugh. But after further thought, I just keep thinking, like, I can't believe this is real life right now sometimes.
The whole thing is completely ridiculous, but also I'm not surprised at all. Like, It seemed like an unlikely and shaky partnership from the very beginning. A lot of conflicting ideological views involving immigration, EVs, alternative forms of energy. And so the fact that it came to a head over this bill that is very bad for EV companies does not surprise me.
I'm not surprised that two sociopathic narcissists can't get along. It's neither of them has positive intent or goodwill or a pure heart. What they do to each other is what they do to each other. I actually don't really care. None of it's helping anybody. They're both into exploiting and using their office and their power to hurt other people.
I don't know if it's a good look for the United States, but I think it's good for the Trump administration. I don't necessarily support them, and I think it kind of undermines his credibility and is good for the long-term health of the nation.
I think it's funny, first and foremost. There's a lot of stuff that they're saying back and forth, and it's kind of like seeing middle school kids fight. I think it's good and bad. It's good that people that say he doesn't act this way can actually see and be like, oh, well, maybe he does act this way. But, on the world stage, it really does not look good at all.
I think I'm not really surprised, and it's really just another source of entertainment. It's not like I fully expected it, but I think we all kind of knew something would happen like that. So I'm not necessarily surprised.
Well, our very own Oubai Shahbandar is now safely back in the US Capitol, where he's been following this story very closely indeed. Oubai, we heard plenty of criticism there for both men for this latest spat. But for balance, we should probably also remind ourselves that there have been plenty of people who have rolled their eyes in disappointment at both President Trump and Elon Musk in the past, only then to find some unexpected efficacy, some method within a seemingly unhinged outburst.
All of this was probably inevitable, let's face it. So Elon Musk has gone from what some have termed it as the bro-in-chief with President Trump, and now we are seeing this extraordinary feud breaking out in real time. It took place so fast that in between the time that I got on the plane from the AnewZ headquarters in Baku back to Washington, D.C., this was breaking while I was in the air. That is how fast the news cycle here in Washington, D.C. takes place, particularly when it involves Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Just for our viewers, let's give a little timeline exactly on how the strategic, political, and financial partnership between Elon Musk and President Trump took place. The genesis here, of course, was the major endorsement that Elon Musk made to then presidential candidate President Trump following that failed assassination attempt on the president in Butler, Pennsylvania. Elon then established a political action committee, pumped hundreds of millions of dollars for get out the vote efforts across all of the states, particularly keying in on key battleground states in support of President Trump. Essentially, Elon went all in to back President Trump, which many of his shareholders at the time thought was a risky gamble. And it was a gamble that ultimately paid off, and in a major way. We saw Elon invited to give a big speech during the inauguration of President Trump, telling the world that the election of the president meant saving Western civilization as we know it, and that electing Republicans into the Congress was the only way to prevent the collapse of Western civilization and the American Republic. Of course, Elon was able to establish the Department of Government Efficiency. He was a special government employee, and it was in the mere days following the end, some call it the termination, of his term as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, that we have now seen that relationship with President Trump go fully nuclear, with both sides trading barbs at each other on social media. Although in President Trump's defense, President Trump is coming out here as the more sober one compared to the major accusations that Elon is throwing out there. And look, let's put things in context for our viewers as well. Elon, this started off a few days ago with Elon taking aim at the big, beautiful bill. That is the budget that was just passed by Congress, that was supported and endorsed by President Trump. President Trump, by all accounts, was not happy with this very much public criticism by a former ally, with Elon Musk just going all in, attacking the bill and promising to fund the opponents for any Republican that voted for that big budget bill, which President Trump said was critical to cut taxes for the middle class and to ensure that key programs supported by the president and the Republicans were funded. Elon saying that this will only increase the deficit, the over $1 trillion deficit, and that it would ultimately lead to economic harm in the long term. President Trump, of course, saying that is absolutely not true and that Elon's accusations are baseless. It then went full thermonuclear mode when President Trump, was thinking out loud on social media, saying, "Well, perhaps we should cut the billions of dollars of government contracts that the U.S. government has with a number of Elon's entities, private sector entities, from SpaceX to even Tesla, which had once benefited from electrical vehicle subsidies or tax credits that President Trump's big, beautiful bill eliminated." So many speculating here in Washington, D.C., that the real impetus here was the fact that President Trump and Republicans pushed for a budget bill that cut the very generous tax subsidies that were given for anybody that bought an electrical vehicle here in the U.S., with, of course, Tesla being the main EV or electric vehicle in the American market. And that would significantly hurt Elon's bottom line. And then we saw Elon threaten the president that he would cut the Dragon X program, which the U.S. space program heavily depends upon. But of course, that may be more of a case of, spiting yourself or cutting your own nose to spite yourself as it goes. Because look, if it wasn't for the U.S. government, there would be no SpaceX, given that Starlink and that SpaceX has most of their big budget connected to funding from NASA, the American Space Agency. And shareholders for Elon's companies are very much worried that this could cut into their bottom line. And of course, there's speculation that Elon is on drugs. We saw a report in American media just a week ago that alleged that Elon was taking heavy doses of drugs in meetings, in cabinet meetings with the president. And it was just in March where we saw reports that Elon Musk was getting in a physical confrontation with Scott Bessent in the Oval Office. That's the Treasury Secretary. Some with even reports suggesting that it almost came to blows. And we also saw Elon getting into a major fight behind closed doors that was then leaked to the U.S. media with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and with Sergio Gore, that on President Trump's last nerve by criticizing this budget bill that President Trump put in a significant amount of political capital of his own to get the Republicans to pass that bill in the Senate and in the House. Now, where will this go? How will this ultimately end? There's already reports coming out of Washington this morning that perhaps the two will reconcile, that, the spat on social media is really perhaps just a flame and temporarily. But Elon financially still depends on billions of dollars of government contracts. The president and President Trump has the power to end those contracts. But of course, this would it would be mutually harmful. Let's put it this way. Elon says that, hey, he's around for the next 40 years. President Trump is only around for the next 4 years. President Trump is reminding Elon, hey, there is only one president, and that president has a significant amount of power in trying to humble Elon Musk, who knows no sense of humility, and that may cost Tesla and SpaceX a significant amount of money. So let's see how this all turns out. But certainly President Trump saying that, hey, Elon, don't forget, you're a private citizen and I am the president. Elon saying, hey, I have an unlimited amount of money, threatening to start a new political party. But that probably won't happen. It costs a great deal of money to launch a new political party in a two-party system here in the US. And we've seen the shares of Tesla tank. So many in Republican circles are seeing this as a divorce between two parents, torn between the tech bros that only recently started supporting the Republicans and the more traditional MAGA conservatives, such as Steve Bannon, who are saying that, hey, these oligarchs, these tech oligarchs are only supporting this administration so that they can have less regulation and more tax breaks for their own private sector ventures. And it is a fight between two giants that is rocking the nation's capital here in America.
Oubai, thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure to speak to you. We prefer you in the studio, but it's always good to speak to you from Washington, D.C. Thanks ever so much again. Okay, that is all we have time for on this edition of NewsHour. Thank you for watching. Please do check out AnewZ.tv and our continuing coverage across all our social media platforms. And from all of us here in Baku, we wish you a very pleasant weekend ahead.